Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Biz Apps with Blake. This is your weekly digest where I bring you news, updates, and other exciting things that I think that you should know about. We have a lot to cover this week. It is the first week of April. Let's go ahead and dive into it. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that you head over to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/@BizAppsWithBlake, where I put out a whole bunch of other awesome videos. My video from March 21st actually talks about a ton of upcoming events, including in-person events and trade shows. And a lot of that information is still valid. So if you're curious about some upcoming relevant events or trade shows, make sure that you go ahead and watch that video from March 21st and check that information out. Also, while you're on the page, make sure that you go ahead and give the channel a subscribe. Thank you so much. So the big event this week was Microsoft's Business Applications Launch Event, which is now viewable in its entirety at bizappslaunchevent.event.microsoft.com. Check out the entire video. Also, check out the over 60 minutes of bonus content available to you. And also make sure to check out the speaker bios of all of the awesome speakers along with their LinkedIn profiles. But I do have one criticism of the Business Applications Launch Event, and it's the same criticism that I share for almost all of Microsoft's big events. And that's that they try and pack so much into such a short period of time that it comes off very flashy and very marketing-y, but there's not a ton of substance there. And so I'm here to help supplement some of that with some additional resources that might help you get a better understanding of some of the topics that were spoken about on the Business Applications Launch Event or things you may have recently heard. So let's go ahead and dive into some of that. And the first place I actually like to go are the various Microsoft blogs for things like Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Dynamics. So if you go here, for instance, I have the Power Apps blog up, and we can see that this is updated pretty regularly with a lot of awesome information. So on April 3rd, they actually updated the What's New for Power Apps March 2023 feature update. I can click on this, and I get a nice, concise list of all of the stuff going on. I get some links that are useful, graphics that are useful, videos that are useful. So again, that sort of repeats itself throughout the Power Automate blog, the Power BI blog, and the Dynamics 365 blog. And if you've been following these blogs for any length of time, then I guarantee you that the things you saw at the Business Applications Launch Event would not have seemed new or revolutionary because Microsoft's been talking about them for weeks on end now. Another thing you can do is actually head on over to Microsoft's Release Planner. And this is something that I know I've talked about in at least one video in the past. You can go here and you can actually look at all of the different components of Dynamics 365 as well as the Power Platform. Pick out something you're interested in, for instance, Power BI. And I can actually tab between planned, coming soon, and try now features, along with additional context about those features. So I'm on Power BI, and if I want to go to planned features, I can actually see where they're at with that feature. For instance, author calculation groups is public preview for June 2023. Early access, nothing on it. General availability, it doesn't seem like we know quite yet, but we have some additional information about the feature. So the other thing is that Microsoft likes to hype up a lot of features at these events that are not yet always available. They might be in private preview. They may even be in public preview. And the rest will of course be in general availability. But if you're curious about where that feature is because you're like, hey, I don't see it in my Dynamics environment yet, you can check out the release planner and see when that feature should be generally available to you. So then the next question is often, that's great. When these things become generally available, how can I test them? And that's a wonderful question. And to answer that, I turn to the Power Apps Developer Plan. If you don't have this already, I highly encourage you to sign up. It is a free environment for development and testing. There are very little rules or regulations around it. However, there are a few. So be sure to read the documentation and be sure that you are compliant with any IT policy that you might have at your organization. But what it's going to do is it's actually going to give you access to things like Power Apps, Power Automate, and Dataverse at a level that you would not have with just the free versions of these things. And just a quick reminder that when you get access to Power Apps and Power Automate through the developer plan, there's a lot you can do there. And sometimes you might get hung up on where to get started. And for that, I like to turn to the template apps. So under Power Apps, if I go to Create and scroll all the way down to the bottom, I see all of these amazing templates that I can start from. I can actually start to look at these and dissect these and learn how the Power Apps work. That's a great option here. The same thing exists for Power Automate. And some of these are extremely useful in their current form. So if you ever want to use any of these to perhaps even enhance how you handle your day to day, then you certainly can. And while we're on the topic of all of the awesome stuff happening in the world of the Power Platform, it would be a really great time for me to go ahead and bring on my guest, Mr. Dustin Sitton, CEO of Incite Automation and co founder of Incite Discovery. Let's go ahead and roll that clip. Hey, everyone, and thanks for joining me. I have my friend here, Dustin Sitton from Incite Automation. Dustin, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Well, my name is Dustin Sitton, and I'm the principal of Incite Automation. We already covered that part. I was a .NET developer most of my career and always kept a foot in SharePoint, always had a belief in low-code development. And then in 2014, 2015, started seeing the Power Platform rise from nothing and immediately started to jump on. And in 2018, left .NET behind, started Incite Automation, and we've been focusing on low-code ever since.
Awesome. Awesome. And so, in that vein, what got you excited and what still gets you excited about the Power Platform?
So being a traditional full code software developer, I love that it abstracted away all of the things that I would have to do and redo every time I was doing full code software development, worrying about scaling and security. How am I going to build the login page? Every time I built a new major application, I had a new set of libraries that were in vogue for that 6 months that I had to relearn with slightly different syntax. And with the Power Platform, I didn't have to focus on all those bare bone problems anymore. I could focus on building something more, something I could have never done. Problems I would have never been able to have gotten to with a traditional application on like the hierarchy of needs, I got to rise to levels I never would have gotten to before. That's what I love most about the Power Platform. It empowers us as developers to build things we may not have had the time or resources to build otherwise in a
Yeah,
really
that's
agile way. Yeah.
no, that's very impactful. Thinking about, my only sort of training in classical development, like you said, I did stuff like VB.net, and thinking about what you could do there with simple forms and boxes and radio buttons really pales in comparison to what people can do now in the cloud with Power Platform. Uh, but like I said, my experience in that space historically was limited. But for people looking to get into Power Platform now, who should be taking advantage of Power Platform?
So there's two, or I'd say three big audiences that we see. The first is traditional full code software developers, right? Um, I know to some of them out there, it feels Fisher Price, it feels gross, it feels a little scary. I know I was a full code developer and I was worried I'd get boxed in. I won't be able to I won't have total control anymore. And there's some truth to that. But in reality, you can do things with the flick of a wrist that would have taken weeks or months or years to solve through full code development. So you're trading in one set of problems for another. But having done both, I will be the first to tell you that trade of problems is well worth it. So that's the first audience, right? The others are career switchers. The world of Power Platform development, we need people with great soft skills, right? Something that traditionally full code developers haven't needed to have. We need you, folks that are on the fence about whether or not to become a developer. Now is the time. These tools can empower you to be really, really great developers and build on the skill sets you already have. And then lastly, people who are power users that may have been Microsoft Access or Excel macro junkies. Now you've got a better mousetrap. Now you can move to that. So Power Power employees and organizations, that's the third big audience that I see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a real call to arms for people. So when I think about the channel specifically, it just feels like Power Platform is still grossly underutilized. So why do you think people aren't using Power Platform?
One is lack of awareness, of what it is, what it's capable of. I partner with a ton of managed service providers, MSPs. That's our main way of working, and all day long, once they've learned up what's possible with these tools, they get really excited. We start showing the organizations that they're partnered with, and I always hear the same thing. I had no idea that our licenses included all these features and functionality all day in, day out. I see people buying software they already own and buying solutions, prepackaged pieces of software that were written in another time, 10 years ago, but are still being, having new features and functionality added to them. But the platform itself is at this point ancient. In tech terms, 10 years might as well be 100. And they're totally unaware that there are platforms, these low-code platforms like this, that can replace purpose-built software and do the job better and faster and cheaper with more flexibility than what they have today. So lack of awareness is the biggest that I see. And then from full code developers, lack of awareness that these tools are heavy hitting. We work with organizations where we're doing hundreds of thousands of transactions into a Dataverse database an hour, right? The scaling is handled globally with a CDN network. I'm getting a little nerdy for some folks in the room, but it's capable of these things. So some of them perceive it as Fisher Price. Nothing could be further from the truth. So
And
yeah,
do you think that there's any fear component in that, sort of the fear of the unknown, or that perhaps they don't want to talk about something that they don't feel familiar with?
absolutely. And I've heard pushback across the spectrum. Blake, in your world, licensing, right? The licensing is too convoluted. I can't tell what the final solution will cost. And I'll say, okay, you know what? There is some ambiguity to the pricing. It takes some time to dig into. How would you build this in .NET? And they'll say, well, I'd build it and I'd put it up in Azure. I'm like, great. Tell me exactly what this application will cost in Azure.
Yeah.
And like, well, there's a ton of factors that go into that. I don't know. I'm like, okay, so how is it better there than here? With this, it is more predictable. It really is. You just have to read some
Yeah.
documentation to fully understand, or talk to, a great partner like Ingram Micro to find out exactly how that pricing works. Talk to the experts. But it's less ambiguous than it is with Azure. So that's a fear I hear. Again, getting boxed in. All of these tools have ways of making sure you don't feel boxed in. At the end of the day, when I'm in Power Automate, I can run a PowerShell script that gives me the full power of .NET available to me. I can call other APIs. I've got FX as a language to write whatever I want available at my beck and call. You won't be boxed in, but you have to learn the balance of the tool and that. But there's fear there because it's a really big mind shift, a really different way of doing things than what they're used to.
It
So
is.
yeah,
When I think about modern work partners, when you buy that E3 license, you know exactly what comes with it. And you come to me and
sure.
you're like, "Well, I want to build out this project. What do you think it's going to cost?" And you have to say, "Well, it all depends." And then
Yeah.
sometimes you feel like you lose the audience right from that point on because they're already thinking, "What do you mean it depends?" Dustin, shifting gears, what in your opinion is the currently best or favorite available feature in Power Platform?
Oh man, that's a big question. That's
It
like trying
is.
to ask you to pick your favorite child, or something like that. Um, I'm going to give a strange answer. The velocity at which change is occurring is my favorite feature. Every release, and a new release just came out at the time of this filming. There was a big event right around the time that we're having this interview. I have a book to read of all the new features and functionality, and I love that. You know what I mean? Every quarter, I've got so many new tools in my tool belt that either I was taking time to build before in a less efficient way, or new features and functionality that I didn't have before. That's in the aggregate what I love the most. I feel like a kid on Christmas Day, whenever there's a new wave release and I get to go open all my new toys and see what I have in that box, because there's always so many. You know what I mean? It got to a point in .NET around, I'd say, version 4, when I'd open the box and there was just coal inside. There was nothing new, just things reworked. I don't expect that to happen anytime soon in the Power Platform. We just keep getting release after release of amazing new features and functionality, and that really makes me excited to recommend it to so many organizations as well. So that's the biggest feature. But for me, again, abstracting away all the things as a traditional developer that I had to worry about of, will this application work well in another continent as well as here? Will it run just as fast? Can I make something that works seamlessly across lots of different devices? And then blending all these technologies. They blend so beautifully together. I could go on and on and on, Blake, if you'll let me. So I'll stop there. But yeah.
No, you're right. And that's why color me shocked when I downloaded the licensing guides at the top of the month to see no changes. I was like, this is release wave 1 month. I expected to be at least be able to open some sort of Christmas present here. But the release planner website will have to suffice in that case. You can really geek out, like you said, on all of the future and upcoming releases.
Totally.
And that brings me to my next question. So, of all of the new stuff that's coming out or on the near horizon, what is your best or favorite upcoming feature?
I am supposed to say Copilot, right? I mean, that's what I'm supposed to say.
If you don't,
But
the helicopters come tonight
yeah,
to
that's
take you away.
and I am genuinely excited to see what comes of Copilot. Selfishly, for me, this latest release, from a nerd perspective, rounds out a lot of things that a traditional developer would expect. All of a sudden, in this release, there is now versioning of flows. That wasn't there before. Last release, they added ability to bucket and solutions, but a lot of things that traditional developers would expect to have around the way that we build software and manage the software lifecycle, they're adding all of those features in, and that's really great. Personally, for me, the biggest upcoming feature I'm excited about is FX in the Dataverse database. The biggest Achilles heel for me in a Dataverse database, with so many amazing features that it has, was its lack of ability to do a function or stored procedure. I had ways to do it, but not a really elegant, good one. Power Apps were bad at number crunching until now. That feature is now finally coming out of beta, and it is fast, it is powerful, and it opens up a new world of possibilities simply because I can in real time make fields and make actions that are super complex, super easy, that do things in real time that would be difficult to pull off even with like a JavaScript or something like that. That's the killer feature. It's been often buried, but for us developers, it's a really big deal. And I feel like I've got a new hammer and everything's a nail as I use that. It's going to open up a lot of possibilities and help further remove a lot of software categories that now this platform can handle too.
And I think that's great, honestly, because to your point, Copilot is going to be phenomenal for the end user. For the developer in all of us, I'm looking for the things that are going to make my day to day easier.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Next question here. What is your favorite project that you've worked on?
I get that a lot. And it's so hard to answer because we have worked across so many verticals. We've worked with casinos, building systems using these tools that run the casinos, practically end to end. We've worked with big manufacturing companies, building a better ERP system. We work with small professional service companies and large professional service companies using these tools. But honest to God, my favorite thing we've built is our system, the one we use here at Incite Automation, because it runs our organization end to end embedded inside of teams. When I go to hire a new employee, all of my paperwork is automatically generated for me. It's sent out for e-signature. When they sign, it procures the license. It sets up their entire account. It puts a task on my calendar to get their a laptop set up. We have a sales system that's also our resource and project management system. It sends our invoices. These tools run our company end to end. And whenever we have downtime or want to test out new features, we do it on ourselves. And, part of my sales pitch, Blake, is to just show people how our company operates and say, don't you wish you were us, basically, with all these amazing reports and AI generated this and that. And they go, yes, please take our money. And we do. And that's my favorite project is us. Yeah.
No, that's really amazing. I was stunned to hear it wasn't just another approval flow. Just kidding. the
They
uh,
all blur together, but they're all fun to build.
and what is your advice for anyone looking to get started with the Power Platform?
So first of all, and this is true of computer science in general, and just people like make sure you understand before you even get started in this or any sort of software development, how data is stored in a database. Learn what third normal form is. Learn how to normalize data. I see a lot of good front end developers not poo-pooing the platform, but running into issues because they don't know how to properly take what's on the screen and shred that properly into a normalized database. That's the biggest thing I see day in, day out. Learn how data structures work. Learn how a database works, right? The fact that you're doing this in the Power Platform doesn't change that fact. So that's my biggest number one piece of advice. It's always something that we look for in our interviews. Selfishly, I would say the best place to get started is incitediscovery.com, our sister company. We train people in the Power Platform. We started that company because we were unhappy with the other training that we saw out there in the world. We had a good system of how we were bringing up our consultants here, and we codified that and said, hey, let's turn around and make this something that we can give to the masses. So in my opinion, it's the best training out there. Others that have taken the course agree. There's live instruction as well as pre-recorded content that we do a good job of keeping up to date. So learn your data structures, learn how to Google, what to Google, or Bing, or GPT at this point, what you're looking for. But that would be my advice.
Awesome, awesome. I think that's really insightful. So aside from Insight Discovery, where can people learn or where can people go to learn more?
Well, first of all, a lot of these things have a free trial, right? You can just dive in and start, playing with these tools. You can get a developer account, and we've got some instructions on our site of how to set that up at incitediscovery.com. That's a good way to get started. Just dive in. You move fast and break things is still good for platform development. That's a good place to start. Microsoft's own site is a good place to go as well. They talk a lot about the features and functionality and have some great demos, great projects to run through. And you can also download some things that have been pre-built, crack them open and understand how they work, but challenge yourself with some business problems you've discovered in the real world. Hey, I once worked at a pet store. If I wanted to run that pet store using a model-driven Power App, how would I do it? Give yourself that kind of challenge and build it and see where it takes you, and challenge yourself with some ideas and see how you would solve them. That's my advice.
Awesome, awesome. I have some bonus round questions here for you, Dustin.
Ooh.
So first one, should we be fearful of GPT and AI? Is it going to take over the world?
No, it will not. It's going to just drive what we're already doing further, right? I mean, I started my career as a full code developer, right? Now I can move faster. I can do things I couldn't do before. This is just going to accelerate that. It's not going to take our jobs away. It's going to give us a higher purpose better, more impactful things to focus on. I really believe that. So there's nothing to be afraid of. There's everything to be excited about. That being said, of course, we should watch, very carefully, move at the right pace, but the future is bright.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. And uh, Dustin, in your own words, why why should people want to work with Inside Automation?
Oh, well, we work in an incredibly agile way with these tools. Insight Automation was built from the ground up for this style of development. And previously, I'd worked at other consulting firms that worked as full code developers, and we tried to take our existing people or existing processes and work with the Power Platform in there, and it's just so different. This is a platform where I can build the software just as fast as I can make pre-made drawings of the software, where I could prototype. The prototype is the software in a case like this. So we had to have an entire shift of how we developed. And so our company is purpose built for this. And as a result, I think it's one of the reasons why we've been, nationally a leader in the space. It's because we were built from the ground up for this. We have a big background, just about the entire staff here, in full code software development. So we know when that's still a better fit. And we'll be the first to tell you. And we know when buying an off the shelf product is still a fit. But also we know when this is the right fit, and more often than not, wave by wave, this is the way things are moving, and that's really exciting for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That about wraps it up for today. I would like to thank Dustin for all of his awesome insights and thank you for watching. I know this has been a bit of a longer one. Be sure to check out the channel on YouTube if you haven't already. Like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Blake Cheek and connect with me there as well. Thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.